So yesterday we discussed things related to styling of our HTML document. So we discussed internal as well as external styling. So how we learned how to use comments in the HTML document, we can use comments in our CSS document as well. You see, if you are writing lots of code, so you'll find commenting very useful. Right now you might feel that commenting is not necessary, or you might feel that commenting is not that important, but later on when you will be developing websites which will have a lot of content and a lot of coding, so you will need something known as commenting, something known as comments. So in HTML we learned how to use the comments. We use this less than and greater than signs, and then we use this exclamation mark, then these dash, these hyphens, and another two hyphens towards the end, and we write our comment over here, so that when a new coder has a look at our code, so he will come to know that yes, this particular comment is describing the content seen over here, and he will be able to navigate and delete stuff, or he can add more stuff in that particular area. So you want to use commenting in CSS, so it's not the same commenting. So for you to use comments in CSS, you have to use forward slashes, two forward slashes, one at the start and one at the end, and then two star symbols. You see, I have written them over here. I'll just increase my font. You see, I have used two stars and two forward slashes, and within these two stars I will add my comment. Like I'll write over here, say CSS for my home page, and suppose I'm adding this particular styling for my say about page. So I'll write over here CSS of my. You can write anything over here in this comment, basically something that can remind you of what you have written in your styling, and what exactly you have written in your coding in your HTML document. So right now you might feel commenting is not that important, but later on you will find the need of using comments a lot. So it's advisable to make a note of this, how to do commenting in CSS. Both have different sort of commenting, and when you will be programming in different languages like C++ or Python or else SQL, so they have different sort of commenting. Like Python has this hash symbol for single line commenting, and then you put this hash symbol, then you write the comment. But if you use this hash symbol, it doesn't work that way. It has a different function in CSS. So the commenting in CSS is done using two forward slashes, one at the start, one at the end, and using two star symbols. And within these two star symbols, you have to write your comment. You cannot write your comment over here. You see, the color of the comment has changed from gray to white. So a comment in my Sublime text is in gray color. So make sure you write your comment within these two stars. You can add space over here, that's not an issue, but then your next line also gets commented out. You can use this for multiple lines as well as single lines. Suppose you have a lot of commenting over here, like you write the name of the author. Like usually when you are making big websites, so the name of the author is used a lot. So you write name and then your name, like I have done the CSS part, and suppose I go in my HTML document and someone in the start of the document has used comments, and he has written that his name, and he has written that he has done the commenting over here, and he'll write his name over here that I am the author, and then the time at which he had done this particular coding, and anything you can write in the content showing details of the website. so that when a new programmer, when a new person is viewing your code, you will understand your code easily. So the commenting in CSS is different. The commenting in HTML documents is different. So you see, you
Screen
can
sharing
just,
is not showing, I think. Screen sharing.
okay. What exactly are you seeing? Because right now it's showing that I'm sharing my screen.
We can see.
Or you can see.
Yeah, both are there.
Okay. Father, is the screen sharing still not visible? Or
No, unless he is talking about CSS, that part.
CSS is not visible?
It is visible. The effect, whether it is.
Yeah, the effect is not done because I've just shown you how to use comments in CSS. So what does
Right.
comment do? They don't perform any function in your code. If a new
Okay.
programmer, or suppose after like 8 months, you're seeing your code and you are lost. So these comments, they help you a lot in your coding. So you right now you're just coding like 26 lines, so it doesn't matter so much. But when you will be coding a lot of lines, like 500, 7,000, like that, when the numbers go high, so we have to use these comments. Otherwise you might end up forgetting what you have coded, then you have to like start all over again. So commenting is very important. You use two forward slashes, then you use two star symbols, and within the star symbols, you have to write your comment. So you can write this comment in 2 lines as well. It doesn't matter. But when you are coding in Python, C++, and also they have different syntax for multiple line commenting and single line commenting. I think so. One student has raised her hand. Yes, Shalom, you may go ahead
Yes.
with your question.
I was just wondering why have we shifted from HTML to CSS and like what's the difference basically?
So that you understand a bit of the styling part. So we had 2 sessions on HTML, like how to add your content, and now we have 2 sessions on how to give a particular style to your content. So then tomorrow we will start with HTML again. So you shouldn't get saturated with only HTML front end code. So what will happen then once I switch to CSS? So you might forget all of your HTML. So here what is happening is both are happening in like both are happening at the same time, so you don't forget your HTML nor your CSS. Like if I just practice my part 1 of mathematics, that is only calculus, and I don't focus more on algebra, so I might end up forgetting algebra after a certain period of time. Or if I just keep learning physics and not math and chemistry, so I might end up forgetting that. Or once I just start learning physics and I don't touch my maths, so I might forget the steps, and that speed won't be there in my coding when it comes to HTML and CSS. So I'm showing them both together so that you don't forget your HTML and your CSS. If I just do
Right.
CSS every time, so what will happen? You might end up forgetting how to add the elements in your web page. And if I just show the HTML part, and then you might end up forgetting the styling part of it. So I'm using both of them together. So since we had 2 classes of HTML, I think so we need to add some styling to our web page because it's looking quite bland and it's nothing great over here right now. So
Also, this is like the page that you can add to many HTML documents for the same styling, right?
yes, the external CSS, you can just link this particular style sheet to n number of web pages, but they should be in the same folder. So if you don't have them in the same folder, then you'll have to navigate to that particular folder. Like suppose if it's on the desktop, so you use a dot and a forward slash, then you locate your document
Right.
and you can save it.
Got it. Thank you.
Yes, yes, you're most welcome. So anyone else has a doubt regarding commenting, they can raise it. So till now we learned how to add these particular stuff. So I'll show you how to add a division and what is a function of a division and IDs and classes. So right now, if I just go ahead and I remove all this content over here, I just save my document and I refresh, you see there's nothing over here. It's showing this CSS because I've added this web page. So I can just comment this particular style sheet out just by using the commenting in HTML. That is this. See, if I just go ahead and I save it, so this style sheet won't work in my web browser. So it is commented out, means it won't have any function in my main code. So now we'll go in our body tag, and if I just open a division over here, okay, I just close it, and then within the division you can add a number of content, like if you add your h1 tags, and then I'll write, okay, this is a title, then I'll add a h3 tag over here, and then heading. If I just go ahead, I save it, and I refresh my browser, you see I have these two things over here. Then I'll add a paragraph. Does this lorem function work in your text editors? Like you just
No.
okay, so it's there in few of the text editors. So what I can do in this division is I can assign a name to this division. If I just go ahead and I assign a class, okay, I can give this any name, like I can give this top portion. Okay, I'll just make this capital. Okay, and then I just save it. You see, if I just refresh this browser, there won't be any changes in my HTML document. But what I can do with this class is I can style this class in one go. If I just go ahead and I open my style tag, and I want to style this class top portion, so the styling of class is different from styling of an HTML tag. So if I want to style an HTML tag, what I used to do is I used to just type the name of the tag, open these curly brackets, and I used to assign attribute and a value to this. Like I want to add a color, I'll add red, save it. I just save it. You see it's red in color. But if I want to style this particular class, so what will I have to do? I'll have to just write a dot. I have to put this full stop and then the name of the class, that is top portion. And then I can do the styling. I have to open these curly brackets. Then I have to add the style, and I can add the same color as I'll add it as green. If I save it and I refresh it, you see all the content is green, but this particular title is not green in color. Why? Because I have styled this tag, and when you style a particular tag in your CSS, so the file which will be read by your browser is the styling you have assigned to that tag and not to the styling you assign to that ID. If I go ahead and I style my h1 tag over here, I add this particular query over here, style equal to then color, say blue, and I just save it. So you see my style over here is my style color over here is blue and not red. Why? Because I have mentioned it before in the previous lecture. There's a hierarchy which is followed in styling. Like if you style a particular tag, So the browser will check that styling first, like, okay, this particular tag wasn't styled. So I'll see whether there is styling in the class or else in an ID. So then he will follow the class or the ID. But if you have added a style within the tag, you see the browser will listen to the styling which was done within the tag and not which was done in your CSS file. If I just go ahead and I type something over here, I just save it, I refresh it. You see my H1 tag is red in color. Why? Because I have written the style as red. But if I just go ahead and I remove this and I save it, I refresh my browser, you see my H1 tag has also turned green, but this particular tag hasn't turned green. Why? Because I have done some styling within that tag and not remove that styling. So if I just remove it and I refresh it, you see my content, everything has turned into green. Why? Because I have added a division. It's like a container, like you make a box and then you add all the content in that particular box and you just name that box something like over here all the tools of my toolkit will be here, and then in this particular box I'll have the screws, in this particular box I'll have wires. You just have to name that box. So afterwards when you want to use your stuff, so what you'll do, you'll just check, yes, this is the toolbox, you'll remove the tools and you'll use your tools. This is my box for screws, so you'll remove the screws whichever you need and then you'll use those screws. Similarly, you make a division over here, like it's like a container type thing, and then you can make multiple divisions. So what happens is in a division, when you add a class or an ID, you can provide all of them with the same styling just by styling that particular class. What you can do, you can also do one more thing. If you just copy this class over here, I just cut it out, and if I add the same class to each of the tags, you see if I go ahead and I add the same class to all of these tags and I save it, you see all my content is still green in color. If I just go ahead and I change this from green to yellow, you see all of this has turned to yellow and it's no longer green in color. Why? Because they are all following this particular class. So it's not compulsory to add a division, but what a division does, it makes your work easy. And instead of writing this query again and again in 4 times, you can, what you can do is you can just open a common division and you can add this query in the division itself. Okay, if I just remove it, or if I just Control Z and if I save it, you see my color has turned to green because over here it's green in color. So what I can do, I can open multiple divisions over here. I'll give this division another name, say middle. Okay, and if I just copy the same content over here, I just copy it and I paste it, I save it and I refresh it, you see my middle portion content is also same, but they don't have the same styling. Why? Because I have added a different class over here. So if I want to style this class middle, what will I have to do? Can anyone answer this question? If I want to style this middle, see how I style this top portion, I want to style this middle portion. So what do I have to do? Anyone knows the answer?
Would you have to write middle portion?
Yes, I'll have to write middle because I have given the name middle over here. So what will I do? I'll go in my style tag and first thing I'll put this full stop so that the code works. If I don't put this full stop, you see, it won't work. I'll just write middle. You can give any name. If I would have given it as A, B, C over here, down over here, and not middle, it would still work perfectly and it wouldn't give you any errors or something. Like I'll give it a color and I'll give it say blue. Go ahead and I save it. You see my middle portion has also turned to blue in color and not is no longer green in color. And now you'll say that I want to style both of these classes together. Like how we could style this h1 tag and then add a comma, then an h2 tag, and then we used to style it, right? We used to style two sort of tags together. You can do the same with the division as well. You can just add a comma. If I just cut this, if I save it, you see everything has is following this particular styling. So what you can do, you can style that same class two times as well. Like I'll go over here and I'll write this ABC class, ABC class, and I'll add a background color over here. Background equal to blue. And if I just save it, you see this middle portion is having a blue background and this top portion is not having a blue background. Why? Because I have added this code for my middle section and not for my top portion. So if I would go ahead and I would do the same over here, background equal to say pink, and if I save it, I'll just delete this, and if I just refresh my browser, you see both of them have same background. So if you have used this particular class once, you can use it twice, you can use it 3 times, 4 times, 5 times, as many times you want to use. Suppose if you have like 500 lines of coding and of CSS, so what you can do, you can go in your HTML document, you see that this particular portion of my code has the class name as a portion. What you can do, you can go in your CSS file and then you can add another style to your top portion as well again. So now right now we learned how to use this style, how to use this class for internal styling. You can use the same method and the same technique for external styling as well. So if I just go ahead in my external style sheet and I just remove all this content over here. So if I want to style my class, so I'll put a full stop and the name of the class, that is ABC. I'll open these brackets and then I'll write the attributes and the value which I had to assign. That say I want to assign a font family. Font family I'll add as monospace. And if I just go ahead and I save it, I refresh it, and you see the style hasn't changed. Can anyone tell me why it hasn't changed?
Because you've started in the HTML document already. Like it takes first preference.
No, I had commented my style sheet over here. You see in the start of the class, I had commented this style sheet. So if I just remove the commenting and I save my code again and I go ahead and I refresh it, you see my font family has changed to monospace and it's no longer in this serif font. So if I go in my notepad and if I add another font, if I just add cursive over here, so you can see the change again. So you see it's become cursive. I don't know why it's not showing that clearly, but yes, the font family has changed. So make sure you link your style sheet well, and if at all it's not working, you can always check your code again, and it's advisable to check your code again and again if you have faced any error, instead of just going on Stack Overflow and posting your query or your code and wait for someone else to correct it. So y'all can practice this part right now, then we will move. If y'all move ahead, if y'all don't want to practice, y'all can just say that yes, we'll practice it later. Y'all can practice this styling of how to style class. You see, I have styled only my ABC class and not my top portion. So you see, it's only styling my ABC class and not my top portion. If I just add a comma over here and I write the name of my other class, that is top portion. And if I just go ahead and I refresh it, you see my top portion is also having the same styling. So this it is irrespective if the class was placed first or the class was placed last. It doesn't matter. Make sure you add the correct name of your class. So how to add a class? You just have to go in your tag. Why we add it in a division is because we want to make the code more systematic and better and easier. Instead of going in your h1 tag, adding this particular class as top portion, again going in your h1 tag again, and then adding this particular class as top portion, then going in your h3 and your paragraph. So it becomes quite lengthy. So what we do, we just add a division to your container. Like we make a small container. If you just remove this division, you will see that there's no much change in your code. There won't be any change in your code actually, but it makes your code to be completed faster, and it just helps you with spending less time typing, and you can be more productive. Instead of typing the same syntax again and again, you can just open a division tag and make sure you close that division. If I just don't close it, and you see, if I just remove ABC from here, I've just added my code for my top portion. You see, both of them will have the same styling, even though I didn't style my ABC. So make sure you close your division tag as well. Like if I just close it, save it, you see my bottom portion doesn't have that particular styling as that of my top portion. So you can add as many division tags as you want. You can add a division within your division. Okay, if I just go ahead and I add another division, only for my header tags, so that the person can know that yes, these are my header tags. And if I just add a class over here and I'll say that headers, and I go ahead and I style my headers in my external style sheet, I'll just write I'll open my brackets, color say red, and I have to just remove this color thing from here. You see my header tags have the color as red. So what I can do is I can copy the same thing. I can use it over here as well. And suppose if your titles over here are different, say numbers only, and something else only, and if I just go ahead and I refresh it, you see all my titles are having this same particular color, because I've just added a color over here, not the font family. Why is my top portion following this font family? Is because I have styled that top portion like that. So you can open as many as division classes you want within a particular division as well. So that shouldn't be an issue. So if I just go ahead, yes, it's over here. And if anyone has a doubt with this, you can
Amir,
doubt. Yes.
each time means when we close the division, The next, if you want to apply the same thing again, we have to open the division and then close it, or it's, once you open that is sufficient.
No. You have to close it. See over here, I have closed it.
Yeah, but
Twice.
open, should be open again. Yeah.
Yes,
Okay.
it has to be opened again. You see over here, I have opened it and I closed it
Yeah.
wherever I need my code. Suppose if I didn't close this division over here, so what would happen? This particular
Will follow.
paragraph would also turn red.
Yes.
If I go down, you see it's become red
Yes.
because I haven't closed my division. If I just go ahead and I close it, I save it, I refresh it, you see it's back to black color. So you can open divisions within divisions, and suppose I wanted to give this another division, say paragraph. Go down.
This applies only for the divisions, right?
Yes.
Not for the body and other.
No. You have to open the division within the body. Okay. If you
Yeah.
forget to open it within the body, then it might cause an error.
Okay.
You can open as many divisions as you want. So you all can just practice this. If you all are done practicing, we can move ahead with another class type thing known as IDs. Shall I move ahead, or y'all are still practicing? I think we shall move ahead with the divisions. I mean, with the classes. So how we added classes, we can add multiple classes as well. So like I can add another class, say something else or anything. So you can give it this class another styling, and then you can add the same styling over here. And like classes, we have another thing known as ID. And ID also performs the same function of styling. Like you can give it a style, and then it will act according to what command you have given it. So say if I give this ID the same name as headers, so it shouldn't be an issue. Why? Because this was a class and this was an ID, so you can assign the same names. It shouldn't be an issue. But when you are styling an ID, styling of an ID is a bit different. See if I just put this hash symbol and then the name of the ID, that is headers. So if I don't add this hash symbol, it won't perform the function. Color equal to, say, green. If I save it, and if I go ahead and I refresh it, you see my color over here has turned to green and it's no longer red. Even though I had added an ID, I mean a class with the color red. So again, over here, first comes your internal styling, which you do within the tag. So if I add a particular style within my tag, the browser will look at this style which I have added. That is color equal to red. Okay. And then what the browser does, it checks whether there is some internal styling done. Then it will follow that particular internal styling and not the external styling. Then it will go to the external styling. Similarly, how we have this class, what the browser will check whether there was a styling in an ID. So if there was a styling in an ID, it will use that styling and not that of the class. So the styling which the browser performs first is within the tag. Then comes the styling which you do using your ID, and then comes your class. So make sure you all remember that. Suppose if you had assigned a red color in an ID, and you open a class in another tag and you assign green color, so it will follow the color of the ID and not that of your class. Are you all understanding my point? So the
No.
function of
No.
ID, pardon?
No, we didn't understand.
Oh, so you didn't understand. See, like I'll just show it to you again. I just remove this. Okay, I just go ahead and I save it. I refresh my browser. You see there's nothing in my browser. I'll just remove my styles also. Yeah. And what I will do is I will open an H1 tag over here, and I'll write something like, okay, I'll write Amir like 3 times. Then I'll open an H1 tag over here as well. Then I'll write over here Zach. Okay, I go ahead and I refresh it. You see, these are 2 things I have written in my document. And then if I add a class over here, you understood the function of a class?
Hmm.
So it's used for styling basically, and I write this top. Okay, and then I go ahead and I style my class. How I have to style a class? Can anyone answer? If I want to style a class, how shall I style it?
Dot.
Correct, you're absolutely right. For a class, you have to put the dot and then the name of your class which you had assigned, that is top. Okay, and if I just open my brackets, I write color equal to say red. Okay, I save it. I add the same class over here, that is top. If I just refresh my browser, you see my color has turned to red. If I just go ahead and I add an ID over here, say one, if I just save it, and I add a hash symbol over here. Yes, hash symbol, and I write the name of my ID, and I save the color as say green. Okay, so what you'll see that my tag h1 tag has both class as well as ID, but what you're seeing is that it is following the styling of my ID and not that of my class. So suppose if you add an ID to your content and then you style it, so the browser will use the styling of your ID and not of your class. Then if you go down in my next h1 tag, you see my color is red. Why? Because I haven't added that ID over here. So it's like if I would do the same styling over here, say if I open another h1 tag and I just paste it, I remove this. Else if I just keep the class also, it shouldn't affect me. And I open my style tag over here, and I just add this color as the blue, and I just refresh my browser. You see, I have a class. Then I'll add this ID as well over here. I have my ID as well, and I have an internal styling done. But what is my browser following? My browser is following the styling which was done within my h1 tag and not in my ID nor in my class. If you go in my first h1 tag, what you see that my browser is listening to the ID and not to the class. And in the third one, you see it's listening to the class because that is the only styling which was assigned to this particular tag. And say if I go ahead and I type h1 over here, I open my brackets and I add a color as black. If I save it, I refresh it, you see it is listening to my ID and my class, not to my h1 tags styling. Why? Because we had assigned an ID over here and a class over here. So the browser has to listen to your internal styling which you have done within the tag. Then it listens to your ID, then your class, and then comes your h1. If I would just write an h1 tag over here and I would write something, I would refresh it. You see it's in black color. Let's say change it to pink. I go ahead and I refresh it, it's turned to pink. Why? Because I have added a styling for my H1 tag as pink in color. So you see the difference. So I hope you understood it. If you haven't understood it still, I don't mind explaining it again. It's just like a hierarchy. Like if a peon is told something by a student, like he'll give the peon the bottle and he'll say, excuse me, uncle, can you just fill this bottle for me? So uncle will say yes, and then the teacher calls that same peon, and she tells that peon that, hello, can you just fill this bottle for me? Will take her bottle as well, and then he meets the principal in the corridor, and the principal also hands over him his water bottle, and he tells and requests the peon that, can you please fill this bottle for me? So he will fill all the three bottles. Who will he return the bottle first to is the principal, then the professor, that the teacher in charge, and then the student. Similarly, the browser does the same thing. It listens to the styling which was done within the tag first. So styling within the tag done is seen in your browser. Then it checks whether a class or an ID was added. If an ID was added, it will listen to the ID and not to the class. And then it will style, if you have used that particular tag in your styling, it will follow that particular command. If you just practice this once or twice, so you will get an understanding of how it works, how exactly it works. So I might try many ways in explaining, but there are times people get confused and they won't understand it till they practically perform that particular task. So once they perform it practically, they'll understand how is it done. Like if I just tell a person that this is a mango, it tastes very good, and you will love it, and of course it is juicy, you can make a good juice out of it. So the person won't know the value of that mango till he tastes that mango. So till you don't practice it, you won't understand the difference. So once you practice it, you might not understand the first time, but twice, thrice, or maybe four times, then you will understand the difference between class and ID and styling within that particular tag. So if you want, you can practice it right now. I can give you all 4 or 5 minutes so you all can just practice it. Then we'll move ahead with our lecture. If you all don't want,
Sir,
yes,
can you please scroll up a little?
yes,
Amir,
yes.
here for all this part you have given as H1. If we give H2 for the second and third, H3, that's fine, or it has to be kept H1 for all?
No, you can give anything as you wish. So if I go ahead and I write H3 over here, and then I have given my third one as H2, and my first one as H1, I've kept it as, the styling will still happen.
Okay.
So I can have the same styling for H1 tag, H2 tag, as well as the H3 tag. I just have to give the same class or the same ID which has to be assigned. So and you can do the same styling in any tag, like the link tag which we use, that is the A tag. You can do the styling in this A tag as well. So if I just show you all another example related to your question only. So and if I just add an ID over here, all of them, like I'll say 123, and then I'll add an ID over here as well. Okay, if I just go ahead and I style this ID, so what I have to do, the first thing I have to do is I have to use this hash symbol and then the name of my ID. That's a 1, 2, 3. Then I'll open my this. Okay, these numbers are not styling, so I'll just give it as AAA. And over here also as hash AAA. And if I just style them, see, you see, I have used H1 tag, H2 tag, as well as the H3 tag. And if I give it a color say yellow. If I just refresh my browser, you see my H1 tag, H2 tag, as well as the H3 tag have the same color, that is yellow. And you all can use the other attributes which we had learned, such as font family, font size, and font style as well. So I've just used color to make it simple. So just save it. You see, I have assigned the same ID to my H1 tag, H2 tag, as well as my H3 tag. If I go ahead and I open my P tag as well, and I give it the same ID, oh yeah, that's this AAA, and I add something over here. Okay, I go ahead, I save it, refresh it. You see, it is having the same styling as my H1 tag, H2 tag, as well as my H3 tag. I've given the same ID. So in order for me to simplify it, what I could have done, I could have just opened a division over here. And I could have assigned this particular name. That is this AAA X, and then, and if I would save it, it would just save more of my time. And you see, it has colored the entire container and not just that particular tag. Why? Because it is right now the background for this entire division and not of this particular tag. Okay. I just save my file and I just refresh it. You see, it is the color for all of these three tags. So just remove this H1 thing over here. So you see, just now my code wasn't working because I just added an A over here within my code, within my styling. And if I just refresh it, you see the styling wasn't working. So make sure you don't have any extra keywords or keystrokes in your code. Otherwise, your styling might not function well. So if you all are done practicing, we can move ahead with our class. So shall I proceed?
Yes.
So again, ID and your class can be styled in your external style sheet as well. It will provide you with the same styling, that there won't be any difference. If I just paste the same code over here, and if I just save it over here, and I save it over here as well, I refresh it, you see there isn't any change in my browser as well. The styling is the same. You see, it's refreshing, it's showing the same styling. Why? Because external and internal styling performs the same styling which was done. So now we will learn a bit of adding and margins. Okay, so you learn how to add a bit of padding in your tag. So if I want to add padding to this particular class, I'll just remove all this and I'll open a division. Say, I'll give this division a class. I'll give it as why we prefer using class before is that suppose if I had assigned an ID to my element and then future I had to make a change in my styling. So instead of searching for that particular ID, I would have to go through my code again and then backspace that ID and change it. So what we do, we assign a class so that in future, if you want to make a particular change, then we can add an ID anytime and we can add that attribute to our content. So we prefer using a class before and not an ID. So IDs are used like when you have to change something your code and you can't find that class thing, or else you don't want to mess with the code much, you just want to change the color. So what you do, you just add an ID over here next to your class, an ID, and then you just change the color instead of changing the entire styling. So I'll just give this class name as 1. Go ahead and I save it. If I refresh my browser, you see there's absolutely nothing in my browser. Now we'll add some content, like we'll open an h1 tag, okay, and we'll start styling our class over here only. So dot and then the name of your class, that is 1, and then we'll give it a background color and say black, and then the text color, that is I'll keep it as yellow. And if I just save it, if I just refresh my browser, you see there's nothing. Why? Because there's nothing in my class. So if I just add title, save it, refresh it, you see there's a title over here. Now I'll add it another couple of times, just save it. You see there's a continuity in the background color and not that there's some white space. Why? Because the entire division is having that particular color and not that particular line is having that color, background color. Okay, and now I want to add a margin to my container. I just copy this container once more, paste it, and I'll change this to 2. Okay, and I'll add some styling over here as well. For 2, I'll add a background color, that is pink. And I add a color as the red. I refresh it, you see I have a pink color background and a red color text, and over here I have a black color background and yellow color text. Now we will add some margin and some padding. So now I'll show you the difference in the margin and padding. Okay, if I just type padding over here and then I'll write say 25 pixels. Go ahead and I refresh it. You see that my content inside my padding, inside this particular division, that is 1, it is adding padding within my text. And if I just add margin over here, you'll see the difference. Margin, not top, plain margin, and I'll write 25 pixels. If I just refresh my browser, I'll expand it a bit. What difference do you observe between the two of them? Anyone can just observe that peculiar difference, and you can just say what difference are you observing. Here I have given padding, here I have given margin. What is the difference? What do you see?
I think in margin the size is the same.
Yes. So in margin, what is happening? Like in a page, how we give a margin? So you give a margin from your entire page. You assign that margin. So you have a web page. So when you assign a margin, it will move itself away from the it's moved from the left, from the right, and it has adjusted itself, and it's not touching the margin. And over here, if you see the title over here, it's being given some space within that particular division. You see, both these divisions are same, but the height of this division is more and the height of this division. If you just see the top portion, this title over here and the title over here, can you see the difference? That padding is for that tag, and the margin is, you give a margin away from your web page. So if you observe it carefully, you can see it. If I just zoom it in, you see from the top there is some padding. If I just give padding top or padding left, it might give you a better view. So there is padding top as well. So you can, instead of giving padding from all four sides, I'll give padding from top, that is 25 pixels. And in this particular thing, I'll give a margin from top. Margin top. So margin top, it's not affecting. Why? Because it is already having this relative position, which is more than 25 pixels. If I just change it to 250 pixels, so you'll find that difference. You see, it's come down. And here I had given padding, so it has moved itself inside within the container. And if you give a margin, so it moves itself within the web page and not the container. You're understanding? If I just remove a few more of these tags, like this title, I'll just keep 2. And over here also, I'll just keep 2. I just save it. I refresh my browser. You see, this margin is from your top over here. You see this is my web page. So from here, from the start of my web page, it's going 250 pixels down. Whereas over here, I have assigned 25 pixels of padding. If I just remove this padding, this title thing will come on top and not over here. So it is giving padding within that particular tag. So if I just create, when we'll be creating forms, so you'll understand the difference between margin and padding. So if I change this padding from top to left, so you might see a small change. Left, and this is also left, and I'll just remove it from 250 pixels to, you see, this entire container is moving 25 pixels from the margin. You see, this is the margin, this down part is the margin, and this line is the margin. It is moving itself from the margin of the web page and not from the margin of the container. And over here, it's moving 25 pixels within the container. Are you all understanding? If not, you all can ask me that to explain again if you all haven't understood. So margin is from the web page and the padding is within that particular container.
Okay.
Can we try it for 2 minutes, please?
Yes, you all can go ahead trying it.
Thank you.
Yes, you're most welcome. If anyone has a doubt, they can raise it. And in the meantime, others can practice it. if anyone hasn't understood this, the difference between margin and padding, so they can raise this question right now so I can clarify it right away. Are you all done practicing?
Oh, yes.
Yes. So you can add padding top, padding bottom, padding left, and padding right as well. So here, if I just remove my comment out my this, also just keep it only. So you see, when I have added padding top, so what has happened within the container, it has moved itself down. Whereas if I had added a margin, so from the web page, from where my web browser is starting, from there it is moving towards the left and not from within the particular container. You see, I've added padding top, padding bottom in this fourth element, and padding left over here in this first element. And in this middle element, I have added a margin over here. So I just expand my browser. You see over here, it's just providing a margin left and not a margin right. Why? Because I have added only margin left over here. See over here, I have just added margin left. If I go ahead and I add a margin right over here, right, I'll add say 30 pixels. I save it, I expand my browser. You see, right now it's just touching the margin. It's just having a default margin that is like 2 pixels. And if I just go ahead and I refresh it, you see this container has moved inwards. You see from the default margin, 30 pixels. And from here it's 25 pixels. If I just go ahead and I add on, like I make it like 40 pixels, and this particular thing also I make it as 45 pixels. You'll see the difference much clearer. So you see from your browser's left hand corner and from your browser's right hand corner, it has moved itself inwards. Whereas in padding, what is happening within the container, it is moving itself and it's adding that portion to the container. You see, this container is smaller than that of these two containers. Why? Because I have added only a padding left and not a padding these two containers, that is left padding. So I'll just explain you all with one more example. If I add a button, I haven't shown you all how to add a button, but in the next class I might show. So I'll add a link tag over here. So how we add a link tag, everyone knows. So I'll give this link a name, say link 1. I'll just copy this thing again, and this is link 2. And if I just go ahead and I refresh my browser over here, you see there is link 1 over here and there's link 2 over here. But when I'm hovering it, so it's not showing anything because I haven't added this href. Href equal to, you can keep it as nothing as well. It shouldn't be an issue. Href, I just save it, I refresh it. Oops. Yes, so now it's showing in a link format. So let me just go ahead and I expand my browser over here. You can see this link thing over here. you can see this link thing clearly. So if I just go ahead and I style my link itself, okay, and here, where's my link? Yeah, it's over here. So what I'll do, I'll just give it a name. I'll give it a class and say I'll write link over here. And if I save it, and I can style my link as well. So what will I do? I'll go in my style tag and I'll put a dot and then the name of my tag, that is link. I'll open this and I'll write margin left and I'll write 55 pixels. You see my link has moved from here to here. It has moved from the margin and not from the container. If I would have added this adding left, and if I would just save it, so it's right now performing the same function. Let me just change the value. But when you are within a container, and if I would just add a container to this thing, so you would see the entire container would have moved towards the left. So when you don't have a division, you can either add margin as well as padding. But right now this is padding. If I just write this as padding, I mean margin top and not margin left. If I save it, I refresh it, you see it's not moving from the margin. Whereas if I would just put padding top, I would save it. Say we'll add like 500 pixels. And we give this link name to this particular division over here, and that is link, and I'll just remove it from here. I save it, and you see within my container it has moved from if I just give this a background, so you will understand my container's background color from where my container is starting. And I'll say I just refresh it, you see my this background has turned to black. The entire thing has turned black for some reason. Yes, it's just showing the entire portion of my link. I should just reduce it to 50 pixels. So you see this entire thing. Why is my title also having the same background? Can anyone say what mistake I have made? I've made a small mistake. If anyone can just see over here, why is this portion also turning black? What have I missed out? I've missed out one small thing. Let's see who can answer it. You see, I haven't closed my division tag over here. If I just go ahead and I close it, I save it, and now it is different. The divisions are different. So where's this division? Yeah, never mind. My one where it's going. Just remove this thing. Let's see the difference. Yeah. So it has moved itself within the particular division and not from the margin. Whereas if I would just give it a margin over here, this particular class, that is link, if I would add a margin over here, that is margin top, say 500 pixels. See, so from the margin, it has become 500 pixels. Whereas if I would just keep it to padding and not to margin, you see I've written margin top 500 pixels. The entire container, you see over here, entire container has moved 500 pixels from the top. If I would just keep it to this, say, padding top, I would just save it. You see my entire container has become black, and it is giving padding from here, not from the top of the page, web page. You're understanding? So the entire container moves if you are adding a margin, and if you're adding a padding, so within that container, it moves itself. So it expands the container width. So if you have added a large value, it will obviously expand that particular container. Say if I want to style within my this A tag, I'll just, you see both of these links are very close to each other. They're not like separate from each other. So what will I do? I'll go in my second link and I'll write over here padding left. First I'll have to open this style thing. I'll write padding left because I want to move it from the left. So I'll add 45 pixels. Let's save it. You see, this link has moved 45 pixels away from this. So if I would have just kept it as padding left, you'll just see a difference over here. Right now, it's not showing much difference. Why? Because it's in the same container. But if both of them wouldn't be in the same container, you would see what difference it is making. So padding is within the container and margin is from your web pages start and your end. So I hope you all have understood it. And if not, you all can ask me to repeat it. I don't mind repeating it. So shall I proceed further? Looks like no one has a doubt. No problem. That shouldn't be an issue. Now, if you see my content over here has come in the center and it's not towards the left nor towards the right. Why? Because it's an easier way of adding the content in the center. You just have to open the center tag and close the center tag, and then whatever content you want to display in the center, you can add that content within the center tag. Say if I just go ahead and I Control X and I add this center tag on top of my this web page and I just save it. I refresh it. You see all of my content has turned to center. Are you all understanding? This particular tag hasn't because it's not in the same ID. Actually, I should do this thing. I should go in my body tag and paste it over here, and then you see all of my content has come in the center. Even the link tags have come in the center. Just reduce it to 50 pixels again. You see all of my content has come in the center of my web page. So this is an easier way to add the center position, and later on I'll show you all how to add this particular content towards the left or else towards the right of your web page. So you can do that easily as well. And then actually it's almost time up. So I was planning to explain you all different positions like static and relative and sticky position. So it might take some while to cover it. So if you all can sit till 10:30, I don't mind covering that part as well. And if you all want to end the class at 10 p.m., so you all can just ask me to stop. So the choice is yours. You all want me to do the positioning today, or you all want me to do that tomorrow?
Tomorrow.
Okay,
tomorrow.
we'll do that tomorrow. So we have like 8 minutes. So I shall give you all a short summary of today's lecture. So what all we have done, we have learned styling of containers using this class and ID. So the first thing which we learned was classes and then IDs. So you have to assign a name to your class and your ID. So if I want to style an ID, so how shall I style it? Can anyone answer that question? If I want to style an ID, so how shall I do that?
Hash symbol.
Correct. Hash symbol and the name of your ID. Then if I want to style a class, you have to add a full stop and then the name of your class. That is, suppose you have given it as header and suppose as the navigation bar or else your form, something like that. So you have to mention the correct name. So make sure you use the correct name. And then we also learn padding and margin. So margin is from your browser's web page's dimension. So like your web page starts from your this top left corner. So if you add a margin, so it will move itself away from that particular side. Like over here in this particular fourth element, yes, it is the fourth element. I have added a margin over here. So therefore, it has moved itself away from the web page. Whereas if I would add a padding, so it would adjust itself within that particular class
Container.
and within that particular container. Yes, thank you. And then we learn how to add everything in the center. So make sure when you're adding things in the center, to correctly open and close your tags. So once you open the center tag and after the center tag, suppose you have opened a division tag, make sure you close the division tag and then you close the center tag. So if I would just close the center tag over here, oops, yes, center tag over here, and I would save it. And if I just go ahead and I refresh my browser, you see nothing in the center. Why? Because I have closed my center tag in a wrong position. So make sure whichever tag you open first, like we opened our HTML tag first and then our head tag. So you close your head tag before you close your HTML tag. Okay, your HTML tag is closed over here. Your head tag is closed in the start itself. You see? And same applies to your other tags as well. There's no partiality for them. You have to use the same format. Like once you open the tag, and then the next tag which you open within that particular tag has to be closed first. Then your previous tag has to be closed. So usually what we developers do, we close it in the start only. Like I have my this body tag open. I close it first only, then I want my content in the center. So what I'll do, I'll open my center tag, I'll close it. Then comes my division 1. Then I can add another division as well. So what if I would just close my division outside the center tag and not before the center tag? So the content in your division wouldn't be in the center. Okay. Like over here, if I add some stuff, I save it, I refresh my browser. You see this content is in the center. And if I wouldn't close this tag, this division tag, and I would close it over here, what would happen is this particular division wouldn't be in the center. It shouldn't be in the center, but right now it's functioning. Why? Because we have, if I just add an h1 tag over here, and if I add something, yeah, it's still coming in the center, but usually you have to close the center tag, I mean this division tag, before you close the center tag. And as I said in the earlier classes, that if there are minor errors in your HTML code, part of the code works and part of the code doesn't. So make sure you don't have any errors in your code, and I'll send the code on WhatsApp as well, so y'all can practice it, like a short code of whatever we did today, and I'll send you all the summary tomorrow and the link today itself. So I'll just stop my recording, and I think yes, someone asked me this question long time back: is container a term in web designing? No, it's not exactly a term in web designing. I just said it so that you all can understand what a division is. So it's like a synonym of division, container. So, but in web designing, there's nothing known as a container as such. We term that particular thing as a division and not as a container. So I think we should stop today's session.